I'm a hair mineral analysis expert. I have a background in functional medicine, and I educate people using HTMA testing to maximize health, erase debilitating symptoms, and gain energy. I'm a multi-time kettlebell sport world champion, and I'm constantly searching for high-performance pros from all over the world to bring you this human optimization podcast. My name is Lisa Pitel-Killah. Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining us for another episode of the LPK Health and Performance Human Optimization Podcast. Today, I am super excited to announce Dr. Rick Malter, Ph.D., author of The Strands of Health, Shrinking the Judge, and How to Free the Inner Child. Special interests have been learning disabilities and attention deficit disorder. Dr. Malter has written and presented papers on LD and ADD to state and national conventions of psychologists and educators. Since 1980, he's been passionate about applying clinical nutrition to helping children, adolescents, and adults with LD and ADD instead of using heavy prescription drugs. He's a leading expert in hair tissue mineral analysis and how mineral imbalances affect stress and energy, and he is with us today. Welcome.
Here with you.
Amazing.
Sharing some important information about the mineral system in general and how it manifests in the hair tissue mineral analysis.
Yes. Well, we're excited to educate people about that too. So let's dig in and say, when did you first discover HTMA?
I first discovered HTMA almost 40 years ago.
Wow.
In 1980. I had just launched my private psychological practice in the Chicago suburbs in 1979. And my wife and I already had 4 kids. And I had gone through the stress of graduate school, getting my Ph.D. from the University of Illinois at Champaign-Urbana in 1971, and then starting off as a school psychologist and running around from one school to the next, which kind of burned me out. Mm-hmm. And so by 1980, I was in a pretty sad state of health and stress burnout. When I started my practice, I was contacted by a small group of practitioners who had opened an outpatient clinic for LD and ADD kids in one of the neighboring Chicago suburbs. They asked me to be the psychologist. So I got to be very good friends with the Ph.D. educator in our group, Dr. Ken Candelaria, who was a brilliant educator and a real student of health science. And he and his partner, who was an optometrist, included all kinds of testing and evaluation of these kids. And they had introduced hair mineral analysis and nutrition counseling. And I would sit in on their meetings with parents and my jaw would drop, listening to what they would elucidate from the hair analysis data in those days. And Dr. Candelaria and I would go out for lunch a lot of times. And he saw how burned out I was. And at that time, my chiropractor did a 6-hour glucose tolerance test on me. Mm-hmm. And the first blood draw, the fasting blood draw, my blood sugar was at 45.
Oh my goodness.
Which is so low, it's just above being in a coma. And naturally, I was constantly exhausted and a brain fog. And so then in the course of the 6 hours, they gave me the glucose. The glucose shot up to the 160s for a couple hours and then came crashing down. The last blood draw after 6 hours, the blood showed a glucose of 35.
Wow.
And I had all the classic reactive hypoglycemia symptoms, headache, shaking. I thought I was dying. I probably was. But,
yeah.
So anyway, shortly after that, Dr. Candelaria urged me to get a hair analysis. And as he's looking at the hair analysis results, he puts his thumb and forefinger together like that and says, "Rick, you are this close to a heart attack."
Wow.
Because my magnesium was 0.9 on the hair analysis, and it should be 6, 90% deficient.
Mhm.
And that's the makings of so many sudden, massive, fatal heart attacks. As a matter of fact, I was just reading in our local paper today. There was an obituary for a young man of 38 who died unexpectedly. They said in the course of the obituary, he was very athletic and he loved to play basketball. Well, if you're deficient in magnesium, the stress and action of basketball further depletes your magnesium. And you can hit a threshold and bingo, you're gone.
Wow. Wow.
That's what I think probably happened to that young man.
And I remember learning about that from you when we did our studies together, when I studied under you on your course. And I remember you telling that story. And that was just kind of one of those aha moments for me. And just so, I mean, that's why I think this education is so incredibly important for people to understand.
Right. Well, one of the things I noticed over the last 40 years, when I was introduced to hair analysis of magnesium deficiency and all the different health risks of magnesium deficiency, hardly anybody had heard of magnesium. But
Right.
thanks to the internet, at least many more people are now aware of magnesium. Many more people are taking magnesium. And I would assume that that has been saving a lot of people from premature death from heart attacks.
Yeah, I think you're right.
In that regard, things are improving. But some people are going to have trouble taking magnesium if they are also in adrenal burnout.
Right.
Because magnesium is nature's calming mineral. And it does that by slowing down the adrenal gland. But if people are in an adrenal burnout, they need adrenal support along with the magnesium.
Right.
So that's where the concept of mineral balancing comes into play.
Absolutely.
And we see how the minerals are deficient and also out of balance from a hair analysis. And so a lot of people wonder, well, how can you get all kinds of useful health information from hair? It's dead. Well, they don't understand that while the hair follicle is growing out of the scalp, it's exposed to metabolic products, including the minerals and some toxic metals.
Yeah.
And they don't deposit randomly in the hair follicle. They deposit in patterns that reflect our stress condition and also our energy capacity. Those are the two primary aspects of the hair analysis. And you don't need to get all kinds of diagnostic labels to see what is out of balance and what is deficient, and use the hair analysis as a map or a guide to selecting the right vitamins and minerals to replenish deficient minerals and to rebalance those that are out of balance.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that I try and educate people about, because a lot of people don't know about HTMA, right? I say HTMA, they're like, what's that? And, you know, I said, do you ever find yourself standing in the health food store and it's like, oh, well, I should take this and I should take this and I should take, you know, D and all this stuff, but they, you know, but it's like, I'm not sure, should I, shouldn't I, do I need it, don't I need it? And I'm like, this answers and gives you that map to answer all those questions. Yeah.
And the hair analysis is unique to each individual. So what may be working and helpful to one person may be creating more deficiencies and more imbalances in another person.
Absolutely.
And so you can get some general information, but the hair analysis lets you individualize it for each individual person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then another aspect of it, it shows the interrelationship of the minerals. So one mineral or one vitamin or other nutrient can trigger a cascade of changes in a person's mineral system. And if they don't know what direction that cascade of changes is moving in, sooner or later they can be in serious trouble.
Absolutely.
And one of the factors that I've been focusing on in the last few years is the big push for people to take vitamin D.
I was just going to say vitamin D because it's on everybody. Everybody's supposed to take vitamin D all the time. And I'm like, no, stop. But I'm going to let you expand on that because I think that's super important.
Okay. Well, Dr. David Watts, who was one of my mentors in hair analysis back in Phoenix, Arizona, back in the early to mid-1980s, he left Arizona to establish his trace elements lab, which has been in the Dallas, Texas area for 35 years now. And he is just a brilliant clinician and researcher. And he puts out a newsletter on his traceelements.com newsletter. And in 2008, he had a wonderful article about vitamin D and how you have to be cautious in taking it, because he pointed out vitamin D will lower your potassium levels in your cells and tissues, which will then manifest on an HTMA.
Yeah.
And if you drop potassium too much, you slow your thyroid, you diminish your energy capacity, and you can even bring on depression because of a much lower energy level. And if your sodium level is significantly higher than potassium, that sodium-potassium ratio I refer to as the stress ratio. Mm-hmm. So the more you drop potassium, the more you're going to intensify your stress, which leads to inflammation and loss of magnesium and a whole cascade of mineral changes. Now, interestingly, in the last couple of years, I've read where a couple of fairly young men who were professionals in nutrition and healthcare died suddenly at age 59.
Oh my goodness.
And my hunch is these couple of men very likely were taking too much vitamin D, starting that cascade of changes, throwing themselves into a high sodium, low potassium stress ratio. The more intense stress is, the more you burn through magnesium, and you can drop your magnesium to a critical point, along with the critically low potassium, and you can literally bring on a heart attack. And that's what I think happened to these people.
Wow.
Because they didn't know how to use hair analysis in a scientific and clinical manner.
Yeah.
Real tragedies.
That is a tragedy. And so I hope everybody is really, really paying attention that's watching right now.
Yeah, and one thing that many doctors and other health practitioners don't understand is that the vitamin D levels are regulated by means of feedback loop mechanisms. So it's much more complex than just, oh, your vitamin D dropped low. Here, take some vitamin D. Exactly. What dropped it so low?
Yeah.
And it's usually related to a buildup of too much calcium in the soft tissues that we see in an HTMA in mineral patterns that we call a slow oxidizer or slow metabolizer.
Yeah.
And if calcium goes up too high, then the body's feedback mechanisms say we have to drop vitamin D to keep from putting more calcium in the wrong place.
That's right. And an important point is that 80% of today's society are slow oxidizers, slow metabolizers, right? So that's a really important factor, is that so many people are in that category now. Whereas it wasn't like that a couple of decades ago, or even a decade ago.
Well, I can give you an historical perspective on it.
Yeah.
My mother was born in 1906.
Mm-hmm.
So she had me and my older brother in the mid 1930s. So she never got exposed to the impact of the female contraceptives,
Right.
like the pill or the copper IUD that have the same effect as vitamin D, namely lowering potassium, raising calcium in the soft tissues, and slowing the thyroid.
Yeah.
So she lived to the age of 90, and I had a hair analysis on her shortly before she died. She was still a fast oxidizer.
Oh my goodness. That's incredible.
That generation of women were not impacted by the contraceptives in such an adverse manner. So they retained their energy and vitality all the way through their adult lives. But with the introduction of the birth control pill with its estrogen content and the copper IUDs, that led to a buildup of excess copper in the cells and tissues, slowing the thyroid, burning out the adrenal glands, and creating a premature shift from fast oxidation to slow oxidation.
Yeah. Wow.
And so from one generation to the next, that copper toxicity syndrome keeps getting worse and worse, even affecting males as well as females in the younger generation.
Yeah.
Because these males are born to copper toxic women.
Exactly.
And so they have picked up the mother's excess copper in utero, and they're born copper toxic. And one of the signs of that is either premature birth, smaller birth weight, and jaundice at birth.
Wow.
I mean, those are signs of the effect of that copper transmission in utero into the food.
Right.
Now, one of the problems is most medical doctors and other healthcare practitioners don't take the mineral system seriously. They don't study it well enough. And they certainly don't study and learn about HTMA.
Right. Well, and I know, it's definitely gotten some hard knocks in a lot of some of the journals. I can't remember. It starts with a J, the journal that it published.
The Journal of the American Medical Association.
Okay. Okay. And because they were using different
ironically,
there, all kinds of things.
Yeah. Right? Well, here's what I think happened historically. Dr. Pollack and Dr. David Watts, who I mentioned before, they collaborated in Phoenix, Arizona, studying hair analysis data beginning around 1975. So they got very intrigued with this newfangled test called HTMA. And so they correlated hair analysis data with other lab data that Dr. Watts had on his chiropractic page. So they could see how it would relate to blood sugar levels and other components of the blood. And they also were well read in other scientific literature. One of the key sources was Dr. Hans Selye, who was an MD who studied conditions that he later described as stress. He was considered the pioneer in stress. So Eck and Watts drew on the research of Dr. Selye, and they began to see that the sodium level in the hair analysis seemed to correlate with the person's stress condition, especially when they looked at the sodium-potassium ratio, the sodium-magnesium ratio. So that helped them crystallize a better understanding of what hair analysis data could reflect about stress. And then they saw how magnesium levels would appear in a hair analysis. They were able to see many more magnesium deficiencies and many more potassium deficiencies. And they began to see manifestations of copper toxicity in the hair analysis.
Right.
So along about the same time that they began their hair analysis research, Dr. Carl Pfeiffer, an MD and Ph.D., in Princeton, New Jersey, published his book, Mental and Elemental Nutrients, which is a classic. And in his book, Dr. Pfeiffer related the female contraceptives to schizophrenia and other mental problems.
Wow.
And he explained how the copper toxicity would be built up in response to the birth control pill with its estrogen content or the copper IUDs.
Mm-hmm.
So Eck and Watts were able to go on Pfeiffer's work. And then they also knew about the work of George Watson, a Ph.D. psychologist who was interested in nutritional factors in psychology and behavior and emotion. And Watson wrote a book, Nutrition in the Mind, that he published in 1972. So he had all of these excellent research studies done in the 60s and 70s that Eck and Watts knew about.
Yeah.
And they began to see that the fast and slow oxidizers would manifest in the hair mineral patterns. And Dr. Watson was talking about fast and slow oxidizers and the psychological characteristics. So Eck and Watts knew all of this research and all of this other literature. They pulled it together, and in no time, they began to see the value of the hair mineral pattern. Mm-hmm. By 1980, they had it basically all figured out. Now, we've refined it somewhat since then, but the basics were already done by 1980 when I needed to have it available when Dr. Candelaria got my hair analysis, and we saw how deficient I was in magnesium.
That's incredible. And to think, I mean, really, that's almost 40 years ago, right? Like, it's been around for so long. It just absolutely astonishing how many people still don't have any idea that it exists.
Well, let me add to the history. So Eck and Watts began responding to requests for interviews, and Watts began writing articles for the nutrition and chiropractic journals. And they began giving seminars in Phoenix. And I would fly down from Chicago, where I lived and practiced in those years, to Phoenix to attend their seminars. And I was just in awe about what they were sharing with us and explaining. And they would draw 100 to 200 people over a weekend for the seminar. So this was going on from 1980 to 1984 and 85. And hair analysis was getting more and more widely known. And so what happened in 1985, the Journal of the American Medical Association published an article in August 1985 in the journal, attacking the accuracy of hair analysis and claiming it was a scam. And I was trying to figure out, where are they coming up with this stuff? Hair analysis is so good. So I went to the local medical library, pulled up the article, and I read the article and saw what a poor quality study it was with the shoulder-length hair. But even with that poor methodology, you could still see both of these girls, 17-year-old girls, who were probably estrogen dominant, were copper toxic slow oxidizers. And Barrett and the editors of JAMA had no idea what they were looking. So if anything, it validated hair analysis. Yeah. But the power of the media and press release is what has an impact on healthcare professionals and on the public. And we see that in all kinds of areas related to healthcare.
Absolutely.
Controls and dominates the media, and they control the narrative. Mm-hmm. What's put out, how it's put out, and how it's disseminated.
Right.
And then in 2001, JAMA repeated that malicious attack on hair analysis with another article that was written by 4 people from the Public Health Department of the state of California.
Okay.
And what they did is, one of the 4 was a 40-year-old woman at the time. So she must have volunteered her hair.
Okay.
So they based that study on hair samples from one woman.
On one sample.
Well, yeah, samples from one woman.
Wow.
HTMA, the American Medical Association, they got a lot of power and influence. They can do whatever they want.
Right.
The media, and they're backed by big pharma dollars. So it didn't matter.
That it was one sample or whatever. Yeah, it's, yeah.
Anyway,
Any difference.
when I looked at the data, I could see that this poor lady is burned out.
Yeah.
And she probably had no idea that the way she was probably feeling was reflected in her own data.
Wow.
So anyway, there were some other flaws in that 2001 study, so I wrote a critique of it,
Mm-hmm.
submitted it to Dr. Abram Hoffer, MD, Ph.D., who is the editor of the Journal of Orthomolecular Medicine. Now, Hoffer is a Canadian.
Ah, okay.
Yes. And he passed away a couple of years ago when he was well into his 90s. So he knew how to take care of himself.
Yeah.
But he's a brilliant psychiatrist, introducing nutritional treatments, schizophrenia, and other mental health conditions. And he published my critique of this JAMA article. So the link to that is on my list of articles on my webpage. And my webpage is malterinstitute.org.
Yeah. So for those of you listening, it's Malter, M-A-L-T-E-R, institute.org. So Malter Institute, and so much other information on there too, Rick. And tell us, so I know you kind of told the story earlier, but people are going to see when they visit your website that your kind of nickname in our world is Magnesium Man, right?
Yes.
When I first got introduced to HTMA, that's why I was like, he's Magnesium Man.
Yes, because when I retired from my practice in the Chicago suburbs, back in 2001, moved down to Arizona, to Cottonwood, Arizona, near Sedona, north of Phoenix. Mm-hmm. I figured I'm retired. But my wife and I started networking. And at our network lunches with other people, when I would get up to talk, I would tell my story, express my magnesium deficiency, and hair analysis saved my life. Yeah. So I was doing this constantly from one week to the next. So one time I stand up to talk, and one of the ladies looked over at me and said, "Here's Magnesium Man."
That's incredible.
That resonated with me. So I went across town to a t-shirt shop and had them make me a Magnesium Man t-shirt. It's blue, it's got a big shield on it with MG instead of a big S.
Yes, it does. And if you visit the website, you'll see that picture with his Magnesium Man t-shirt on.
Now, the only thing missing is I don't have a red cape.
Okay. That's amazing. I love that story.
And a great site for hang gliders.
Oh.
During the warmer weather, we see people floating down hang gliders.
That is wonderful.
My Magnesium Man t-shirt, if I put on a red cape, I might be tempted to try this.
To try hang gliding? So if you're in Arizona near Cottonwood and you see a man in a red cape hang gliding, you know exactly who it's going to be.
So that's how I got to be designated Magnesium Man.
Wow, I think that's pretty incredible. And I mean, all of the work that you've done, obviously, you know, being a clinical psychologist and using HTMA in your practice, I mean, just so many people helped in a different way rather than taking prescription drugs,
Absolutely.
Right? It's just amazing.
Yeah, and I would think that what I've been able to do in getting the magnesium stress connection out to so many more people that I probably have managed to prevent quite a number of premature heart attacks.
Yep, absolutely.
Vital information out. So if I were to sum up the essence of hair oils, the minerals don't deposit randomly. They deposit in fast and slow oxidizer patterns. They show the deficiencies of minerals, but also the imbalances that need to be rebalanced. And the hair analysis is especially good at detecting magnesium status.
Mm-hmm.
How severe is a person's magnesium deficiency? Is it only a slight deficiency, moderate, or extremely severe, putting health in serious jeopardy?
Yeah.
So by far, hair analysis is the best available lab tool for assessing magnesium status and health risks with magnesium deficiency. The other important aspect has to do with copper toxicity, because it's affecting 80% of the population, males and females. And it has a profound effect in slowing down metabolism, diminishing energy, throwing people into hypothyroid, and many of them go into adrenal burnout. And they have no energy, they're chronically fatigued. And since we know that copper toxicity builds up excess copper in the liver, there are more and more people with liver congestion and liver problems. And because the excess copper also stores in the brain, you have many more psychological effects. Memory, concentration, focus, and many of the symptoms that are designated by psychiatrists as ADD.
Right.
Or what I call pseudo-bipolar disorder.
Yes.
Many bipolar diagnoses really are very copper toxic people, mostly teenage girls and women.
Yeah.
And they're not mentally ill, they're copper toxic.
Yeah.
And and so on the coppertoxic.com website of another Canadian, Rick Fisher in Vancouver, he's got a great website with loads of information about copper toxicity. And at the bottom of his homepage, he's got a couple of short videos on copper toxicity, and he also added on my video that I call the Copper Toxic Society. What happens when 80% of our population are copper toxic individuals who are space cadets? They can't focus and concentrate. And they make all kinds of errors in learning. And if they're in the workforce, they're making all kinds of errors. They can't follow directions consistently well. And we have many more dysfunctional people.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I guess that's, for me, and me, I've been dealing with copper toxicity for probably about 18 months now, and just being able to try and detox that and deal with the symptoms. And it is energy, strips you of energy, racing thoughts, can't sleep, like just so many awful things associated with that, for sure. And,
So
mood swing. Yeah.
Toxicity, as you know, the symptoms get temporarily worse in the process of detox.
Absolutely.
Understand it. So if you're detoxing copper, don't run off to a psychiatrist, because they'll throw all kinds of psychiatric labels and prescriptions in.
Yeah. Yeah. And it does get easier for sure. People have to realize that the whole picture, when you're looking at things from using the HTMA as a guide and using a holistic intelligent nutritional programming process, as well as proper supplementation, that it definitely brings things to light, and you end up feeling better, right? It just takes some time. Yeah.
Well, when I first started giving my seminars on hair analysis and copper toxicity at my psychology office in the Chicago suburbs, this is back in 1984.
Mm-hmm.
I learned enough about hair analysis and copper toxicity from going to Phoenix for a couple of years. So I decided to provide an educational program for my clients and to some of the people in the community.
Mm-hmm.
So when I would finish each seminar, at least one person would raise the question, why don't medical doctors and other healthcare people know this stuff? It makes so much, hair analysis concepts and principles make so much more sense.
Yes.
There was a medical doctor in that generation of the doctors I mentioned in the 60s and 70s, Henry Schroeder, MD. He made the simple but profound observation that minerals are the spark plugs of life.
Absolutely, for sure, the spark plugs.
They were the foundation of good health.
Mm-hmm.
And but of course, his medical colleagues blew him off, didn't pay attention, and learn more about what he was conveying.
Right. So sad. So
that then eventually led to what I call the medicine minerals disconnect. And that was reinforced by JAMA with that 1985 article attacking hair analysis and with a big press release. So that drove a bigger and bigger wedge between medicine
and HTMA. Yeah.
And that's why so many people simply cannot get the help that they need with their overall health care. No matter how many billions of dollars we spend on health care.
Yeah. Well, and so we only have a couple minutes left here, but I think what I want to know, and I do want to mention your course because obviously it's very important for education and any health coaches that are listening that maybe want to implement HTMA in their practice. Your course is excellent, but how do you think the HTMA is going to impact future generations? Like, what do you see, in the next decade for that?
Well, if HTMA gets more and more disseminated and accepted, it can have a profound positive health effect. But I think given the political and economic factors, as well as the research in health science, that most people are going to have to learn more about minerals and HTMA on their own.
Right.
They're not going to get it in schools for a long time. They're not going to get it in colleges and universities.
Right.
And they're not going to get it from medical doctors and other practitioners whose training lacked a focus on minerals and on HTMA concepts and principles. So even though I designed my course for health coaches and healthcare practitioners, it's put together in such a way that non-professionals can still get a great deal of vital information.
Yeah.
And even though we touch on minerals as part of a person's biochemistry, you don't have to know intricate biochemical formula with all of the intricate connections that students of chemistry learn to write out.
Right. Yeah, no. And you know what? I've taken your course and it was fabulous. I learned so much information. And again, you don't have to be a health coach. You don't have to be, a practitioner, to take control of your own health and to educate yourself to not stand in the vitamin aisle and be like, which ones do I take, right? What's right for me? And people say, you know, and I always say, even to my clients, it's like, you know, your friend who came to see me, your HTMAs might be very similar or somewhat similar, but your protocols and your whole system of holistic, you know, getting back to health may be a bit different because each person's a bit different. And, you know, it's all individualized. And I think that's what we really have to bring it back to is to being able to accept that we're all unique individuals, and we have to think of our health that way too.
Yeah, and the HTMA is a powerful lab tool that gives us our mineral picture,
Yeah,
our unique mineral pattern at a certain point in time.
absolutely. Yeah.
And the mineral system is dynamic and it changes over time. And it's with these changes that often leads to mineral deficiencies, mineral imbalances, and eventually a deterioration of health. And the HTMA gives a person a way to monitor their mineral system and to know whether something has shifted in a significant direction that's going to lead to problems. So you can begin to replenish and rebalance.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, so important. So for those of you watching and listening, you know, really HTMA is a stepping stone in the right direction to a guide map to just being healthier and knowing exactly what your body needs at that given point in time and moving forward. And again, I use HTMA myself. I know Rick does, and to guide my health constantly. And definitely am better for it. And I know, Rick, it saved your life. And for me, it was the only tool that brought me to the underlying cause of what I was really dealing with so that I could actually fix it for good. Had I not had that tool, I would still be truly suffering and in very poor health. So Rick, I just want to talk about your course because you do run a course regularly. It is advertised on your website. So again, that website address is Malter, Malter, institute.org. And so more information there. And Rick, a link to sign up. Do we have a link to sign up, or can they sign up on the website?
On my website.
Perfect.
People can click on hair analysis and they can sign up for the course.
Excellent.
For that page.
That is perfect. So yeah, so click on the hair analysis and you can sign up for the course there if you're interested. And again, thank you so much, Rick, for all of that information. I am just on a mission to get people to be optimal health and, you know, be the best that they can truly be. And you're definitely a pioneer in that area.
Okay, I just want to close. I teach the course usually one time a month.
Okay, perfect.
3 weeks, 6 classes online.
Yeah.
But the classes are recorded. And I recently gave my stress overwhelm, magnesium, and mental health presentation to our local mental health coalition. And the recording of that is available. So if you email me at rickmind9@gmail.com, I'll send you the link to that recording.
Amazing. And I listened to that recording yesterday. It is phenomenal. You don't want to miss that. So again, you can email Rick for a link to that recording. It's Rick, R-I-C-K, mind, M-I-N-D, 9 @gmail.com. Right. Excellent. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. If you're watching or if you're listening, we appreciate it. Leave us a comment on iTunes and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.
Thanks for watching today's show. Head on over to Killah, KILLAH.org to gain access to some amazing resources that will help you gain energy, rid yourself of debilitating symptoms, and be the best version of you. Remember to give us a like and follow us on Instagram at coach.killah. We're here every 2 weeks with a brand new episode of the Human Optimization Podcast. Until next time.